kind words of introduction. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here talking about the subject that it is very dear to me, education. All my adult life, I have been a teacher. I have been a lecturer, engaging with your children and your grandchildren, that I have looked upon them as being my own children. And having that philosophy of looking at your children and your grandchildren as my own also brought me many moments of despair for what I was teaching them, which was not necessarily what I was teaching my own children. And that made me to go through a life change, a journey. And I love to hear stories. Brother David talked about the stories. And by the way, your speech was very inspiring, very beautiful, and that has made my life very difficult. How can I rise to the challenge of Brother David and follow on his footsteps? So that is the difficulty, but also you made my life easy because you shared with us so many beautiful things that has inspired me and helping me to give my talk today. So on both accounts, thank you. The other thing that I have got to say before I forget, as I do always when I give a talk, this presentation is dedicated to the youth of the world, our children and grandchildren, who are the unfolding story of decades ahead. May they rise to the challenge of leading our troubled world with hope and wisdom in the interest of the common good to a better future, to a better path. And it is wonderful to see so many young people here. The other thing I have got to say before I go into my talk, thank you very much to you, Luigi, our friend. You have shown commitment. You have shown others how to take action in the interest of the common good in your field, which is education. For many years, you have brought us all together in Cortona before and now in TODI. And you have become a beacon of hope to all of us. If we want to do something good, there is hope. There are wise people in front of us who can encourage us. Thank you very much for your commitment and thank you for your doing. I have done a few conferences in my life, and I know how difficult it is to organize conferences. Therefore, thank you very much also to your team, to all these wonderful people who are helping you, assisting you, to making sure we come here with wonderful feeling, and we also leave here with even better wonderful feeling and hopes. So thank you very much to all the team. And now, there is one more thanks to give, and it's to all of you being here present in the form of a great Celtic blessing. The warmth of the sun to you, the light of the moon to you, the silver of the stars to you, the breath of the wind to you, and the peace of the peace to you. With that in mind, I know time is short, like life itself, and I must admit to you that I feel a bit nervous here, standing in front of you, giving my talk. It reminds me of the first conferences that I used to go 30, 40 years ago when I was doing my final years of PhD and when I got my PhD, which I thought, now I am a clever man and I know everything. And I used to, I don't know if you have done it, but some of my colleagues, when I hear my story, they said they have done it too. Before I went to my first conference in Department of Economics at Manchester University, nearly 30, 40 years ago, we had a nice, long, tall mirror in our bedroom. And I used to stand in front of that mirror and practice what I was going to tell. Like the beautiful models who do fashion catwalk, I used to do my catwalk in front of the mirror. And then I got to the conference, I was so nervous, not knowing enough, that I didn't know how to talk. And now I feel the same nervous here. Not for the same reason. I have got so much in this brain of mine here, 40 years of talking about valueless education, spirituality, love, compassion, sympathy, empathy, bring it into the education world, that I don't know which one to get out to share with you. So please bear with me as I sort myself out and my thoughts out to share my story with you. It has been a very beautiful story. As Rico said, I was born in Tehran 67 years ago, 1952. At the age of 18, I went to England. I was born into a family. My late father was Sufi, and all the time as a child, I can remember he used to put me on his knee and read poems to me and my other siblings. I got to know Rumi, Saadi, Hafiz, Khayyam, Ferdowsi, Attar, you name it. All those sages of Persia, I had it in my head. I went to England, I went to Oxford, I went to College of Education there to do English as a foreign language, TOEFL, which was needed to go to university. And then I met my wife, Annie, who had come from Coventry to Oxford to study radiotherapy at Churchill Hospital. And we met, and a couple of years later, we got married. We went to Canada. Annie was working in cancer clinic. I went to university. I did my BA. I went my MA. And I always had our first son was born in Canada. And I always wanted to do my PhD, and I wanted to do it in England. So my supervisor in Canada knew somebody at Birmingham University, which is close to where we had a house in Coventry. And we returned to Britain, and I went to Birmingham University, and I did my PhD. And I got a job at different places, like anybody else, first part-time and teaching assistant, this and that. And then after a few years, I got my first job, permanent 10-year job, at Coventry University. Anyways, I have got to make a first confession to you, the first story, and that is from the first day. I was a mature student. I was not 17, 18 years old. I was much older when I went to my first class in economics. I did not like the subject. And this is not anything new. Each time that I start teaching, or before I retired, I'm retired now, before I retired, I used to have 200-300 people in my classes. By the next 3-4 months, reduce, and it was 10 left because everybody disliked economics like I did. And I don't blame them. But somehow I persisted. I had not planned it that way. Somehow I persisted. I carried on. I showed resilience. I showed commitment. And I did my BA with a very good result. I did my MA with a very good result. And I did my PhD, and I was awarded as being one of the best PhD and research. And the PhD thesis, which was immediately published as a book, it was one of the first PhD theses written in the Western world on Iranian Revolution, political economy of Iranian Revolution. And after that, I published my second book by Routledge on economic consequences of Iran-Iraq war, and so on. But now I think about it, why is it that I carried on? Why is it that I did what I did not like? I think God had planned it for me. That I carry on achieving what I achieved without praising myself, which I hate to do, but it wasn't bad. In relative and absolute terms, what I achieved as an academic was not bad. Was not the best, but was not bad. But when I'm going to tell you the story, the second story of what happened, I think God had planned it for me. That I carry on and achieve something in economics so that one day when it became necessary and needed, I had at least a little bit of authority to make a critic of what I was teaching, and therefore give me the ability, enabling me, empowering me to provide alternative. So my talk today is a critic of me. as a lecturer who taught economics and business at different business schools around the world and created a product, if you want to call them students, graduates, who in 2008 went and destroyed the world. Those people who destroyed the world and gave us the financial crisis, creative accounting, the mortgages and so on, they were not your dustbin man, they were not your milkman and so on. They all had PhD and MBA and they did what they did. Wisdom tells us to be self-questioning. Was there anything that I taught my students? Did I instill wrong values in their head to give them the possibility and the power to go and nearly destroy the world? They gave us the crisis in 2008. 11 years later, still we have not solved it. So there must be something going on. Then, after about 30 years of teaching, the other thing I want to share with you, beautiful questions, set of questions by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot has posed the following pertinent questions, relevant to our times today. Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Brother David eloquently talked about the mystery of life, faith, religion, all these things that somehow, it seems, has been lost in the process of us conquering technology. And sometimes we have become a slave to our own creation. But that's another story for another time. Now, after so many years of teaching, engaging with the students, and doing what I wanted to do, I started to feel unhappy. I started to feel unwell. A person who had brought presidents and prime ministers and ambassadors to Coventry and the Coventry Cathedral, because I established a center, one of the first academic centers in the world maybe, on the study of forgiveness and reconciliation and its impact on peacemaking. And I invited President Mary Robinson, at that time she was president of Ireland, to become the patron of the center. She came to Coventry Cathedral, gave a lecture. Then the former president of South Africa, I invited him to come and talk about Nelson Mandela and what happened and so on. So the person who was able to engage at that level, I went in front of my students and I couldn't give lectures. I was feeling unhappy, I was feeling depressed, I was feeling sad. At the same time, all that I had done and I have achieved. Now that I look back, I think it was a conflict in my mind, a conflict with my conscience, that when I left my house, when I closed the door, gave goodbye kiss to my wife and my 2 boys at that time, now they're grown up, and I went to university, I became a totally different person. What I was telling my children at home as good values, I was not teaching my students. Now, after many years, when I retired early because I just couldn't cope anymore. And again, I tell you, that was based on mystery of life, what God had planned for me to do something else with my life. Otherwise, I would have carried on unhappy lecturer, teaching unhappily things to students and making their life miserable too. So I wrote a book after many years of my own experience because I couldn't muster the courage to tell people what happened to me. We all have got to show we are strong, we are resilient, we know everything, etc., etc. So somebody comes and says that I was feeling unhappy, I was feeling depressed, I was feeling panic attacks and so on, was not a fashionable thing to say. Thanks God, it has become more fashionable and more people are able to share life stories. Life is not Facebook and Instagram, everybody, ha ha ha. There is more to life than that. So this is what I wrote. From 1980 onwards, for the next 20 years, I taught economics in universities, enthusiastically demonstrating how economic theories provided answers to problems of all sorts. I got quite carried away by the beauty, the sophisticated elegance of complicated mathematical models and theories, but gradually I started to have an empty feeling. I began to ask fundamental questions of myself. Why did I never talk to my students about compassion, dignity, comradeship, solidarity, happiness, spirituality, about the meaning of life? We never debated the biggest questions of life. Who are we? Where have we come from? Where are we going to? What is the purpose of this journey we call life? I told my students to create wealth, but I did not tell them for what reason. I told them about scarcity and competition, but not about abundance and cooperation. I told them about free trade, but not about fair trade. About gross national product, I told them, but not about gross national happiness. I told them about profit maximization and cost minimization, about the higher returns to the shareholders, but not about social consciousness, accountability to the community, sustainability, and respect for creation and the creator. I did not tell them that without humanity, economics is a house of cards built on shifting sands. These conflicts caused me much frustration and alienation, leading to heartache and despair. I needed to rediscover myself and real economics. After a proud 20 years or so academic career, I became a student all over again. I would study theology, philosophy, and ethics, disciplines and subjects nobody had taught me when I was a student of economics, and I did not teach my own students when I became the teacher. It was at this difficult time that I came to understand that I needed to bring spirituality, compassion, ethics, and morality back into economics itself to make this dismal science once again relevant to and connected with the common good. All in all, the creation of a stable society in today's global world is largely ignored in favor of economic consideration of minimizing costs and maximizing profits, while other equally important values are put aside and ignored. Yes, my friend, it was a very painful time for me. I resigned and I didn't know what to do. And by not knowing what to do, I augmented my own suffering. I had a very good friend in Oxford, and he encouraged me. He says to me, I used to go to him. He was a very nice philosophical man, a man of achievement in all aspects of his life. God bless his soul. And he says to me, Kamran, what you are saying to me is you are in search of big questions of life. And this materialistic economics that you have been taught is the problem. I suggest to you, go and become a student again. So he had a friend, the dean of a college in Oxford at that time, a Jesuit college, Palette College, and he introduced me to that. And I went and I became a student again, and I did pastoral theology. While I was doing pastoral theology, I also did ethics and philosophy. And then in Oxford, I also had the chance to go to different colleges and lectures, and I met many good people, many good philosophers and teachers, and they all started to inspire me. And my life changed. A person who had become inward-looking, suffering from lack of confidence with all that achievements and books and so on, and the letters after my name and so on, and I was looking sad-faced and so on, I came back and I became myself again, the light and the salt of party. I started to be me again, and I thank my wife greatly for her help on that journey. A movement started originating from Sorbonne, Department of Economics at Sorbonne. Students of economics boycotted the economics lecture. They did not go to the classes. They said the subject is authentic, it's not real. They said does not represent the reality of life. There is too much mathematics, econometrics, statistics, and so on in economics. Economics is the study of people. Economics must become a study as if people mattered. In the wise word of one of my favorite economists, the late E.F. Schumacher, small is beautiful. If you haven't read that book, I encourage you to read it. It's a gem. I became influenced by that book many, many years ago, maybe around 1978. It was the second year of my study in economics at University of Windsor in Ontario on the border to Detroit. And my wife and I on Sundays wanted to do something. We used to go to Ann Arbor, the home of the University of Michigan. And it reminded us a bit of Oxford because where we used to live. And we used to go to the bookshops and the libraries and cafes, and that was our spiritual moment. And one day in Ann Arbor, we were walking and we passed this second-hand bookshop, and I saw this book, Small is Beautiful. And I said, it immediately captured my imagination. I went in, I picked the book up, E.F. Schumacher, I read it, then forgot about it for nearly 30 years. And then when I became a recovered economist, I again visited Small is Beautiful and Buddhist economics and Buddhist philosophy and so on, and that has been another beautiful journey, which I encourage you young people, read the Small Beautiful, read about Buddhist economics, they are beautiful, read about San Franciscan writings on environment and so on. It's enlightening. There is something that not many people are receiving today in their education. Now, what I say is this, I've been telling you about the words that I have been using. Let me recall a few of them. Happiness, life, humanity, community, family, friends, meaning and meaningless, values, valuing, being valued, love, being loved, being able to share love. Why these are important? And the other thing, now that I'm looking at my notes, I must share with you, although I'm an economist and I only work in the Department of Economics and Business Schools, and I'm making a critique and providing an alternative model to the teaching of economics and business at business schools, I think given the fact that I have shared these over many years with many colleagues around the world, what I say I believe resonates with other people from different fields and different disciplines. So change economics and so on, when I talk and apply it to your own discipline, I'm sure it resonates with you. A few years back, at a so-called prestigious business school in North America, the entire MBA students were questioned and surveyed. They were asked to identify the most important things to them, personally and professionally. Over 80% said that getting super rich, having loads of money, becoming famous, holding power and position were the most important things that they could aspire to. Nobody talked about love, humanity, sympathy, empathy, sustainability, creation, gifts that we have been given, how they have got to be used, etc. Nothing. Nothing about mom, nothing about dad, nothing about siblings. Power, money, being famous. But wait a minute, I ask myself. Are these really important? Are these significant? Are these really the most important ingredient of a happy, good life? Will they assist us in our search for meaning and meaningfulness, stability, sustainability, contentment, inner peace, and the common good? How to lead a good life? I think not. And there are many people who think like me. Let me share it with you. In this respect, the following words and sentiments by a young German executive rings very true. He said, he had been after the money and the position, and he had got his MBA, and he had become a big chief. After doing all that, this is what he said, and I'm doing a direct quote. Now it's all about productivity, pay, performance, and profit. The 4 P's, which is fueled by the 3 F's: fear, frustration, and failure. Just sometimes I wish that in the midst of all these P's and F's, there was some time left for another set of 4 F's. And they are families, friends, festivals, and fun. We are people, we are blood, we are flesh, we have got heart, we have got emotions, we have got the feelings. In the last, I say 30 years or so, especially since the rise of Thatcherism in the Kingdom, Reaganism in America, with all the horrible bitter fruits that they are still giving us, the human beings, wherever I go, doesn't matter is England, United States, Canada, Italy, Africa, Asia, where I go and give lectures, the all emphasis has been on material side of life. They call it democracy of choice. They give us choice to choose from alternative possibilities, which is all related to production, buying, and choosing. All material side. There is nothing on democracy of worth, democracy of worthiness, democracy of meaning. And that reminds me of a Persian proverb. We are human beings created like a bird. And we have got 2 wings. One is the material wing, one is the spiritual wing. And these 2 wings, for a good life, they have got to be in perfect harmony. I'm not saying that we should go to a cave and forget about material life. No, we need to have a job, we need to have a pension, we need to have money to buy things, satisfying our basic needs, etc., etc. That's important. But after that, it becomes enemy rather than friend. So we have put too much emphasis on this material side. Money, 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 possession, shopping till you drop, Black Friday, this, that. But our emotions, our feeling, our spirit is not being addressed. And the proverb says, a bird with 1 wing cannot fly, cannot take off, cannot cruise, cannot land. It goes like a mad person, round and round, until it drops dead. And this is the story of our world today. We have misused the gifts that has been given to us. You believe in God, Wonderful. You don't believe in God? Wonderful. That's not for me to decide for that. That the gifts were given to us before we were born. The gifts were given to us to create a good life for ourselves and our fellow human beings. Now, I have got to read something else. Given what I said about this German young executive observation about life, the following remarks rings true. The Dalai Lama was once asked what surprised him most. He said, man. Because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die and then dies having never lived. I'm sure it resonates with many of us what is happening in this world today. The other day I was giving a talk in England that why is it that this world that was given to us for this limited period of time that we have, many people think when we came here we had a one-way ticket. No, it's a two-way ticket. One way we used it here, the next ticket is when we go back. When we go back, we don't know. But it's a ticket that is there to be used sometimes. So some people think we are here forever. As a result, they have forgotten about the beauty of life and the meaningfulness of life. They have lost the path. They have become dead souls. I was talking about the Brexit and what is happening in Britain today. And then there's another 2-year interval that happens, the circus in the Conservative Party, when few people put their name forward to become our next Prime Minister. Okay? And I said, excuse me, who are these people? What is their claim to beauty and wisdom that they're asking us to be our leaders and taking actions on our behalf? And why is it that after all these circuses that we have every 4 years, that somebody comes and says, I'm your leader and follow me, the world is going from crisis to crisis, continuing crisis, deepening crisis. We have got all these universities, we have got all these PhDs, MBAs, so-called educated people. Why is it not enough wisdom there for them to bring that wisdom together, master it, and provide an alternative, a solution? So, when I was giving a talk, it went like this. The remarkable characteristics of our chaotic and crisis-riddled world today is the deepening and continuity. It's not a crisis that we were able to solve and bring a bit of a good life and then another one. It's just carrying on. Crisis after crisis. Financial crisis, credit and banking crisis, environmental and ecological crisis, now even plastic crisis. I'm sure most of you must have seen David Attenborough, Blue Planet 2. Plastic crisis is really big crisis. Plastic particles are in our bloodstream, in our guts. Okay? And yesterday, at Birmingham Airport, when my wife and I were leaving for Rome, materialistic world, you have got no choice but going through duty-free shops. There is no other way you can get to the departure gate. You have got to go through the duty-free shop. Hundreds and hundreds of bottled water on top of each other at a special price for you to buy, and no water fountain for me to fill my water bottle. Came to Rome. I asked everybody, is there any water fountain that I can fill my bottle up? No, sir, the bottle is there. A little bottle of water, €3.20. If these things are not the sign of stupidity of economic model, what else it is? Plastic is killing us. It's not only the fish, it's killing us, and it's still bottled water. So, bottled water, biodiversity crisis, housing crisis, health and well-being crisis, educational crisis, spiritual and moral crisis, trust and trusting crisis, indifference crisis, fake news and faking crisis, reality crisis, virtual friendship crisis, populism and fascism crisis, all of them leading us to be a generalized time of crisis. Now, there must be surely lots of reasons for it. I am not expert on all of them, and I cannot speak for all of the reasons. One reason that I can talk a bit with confidence is the education crisis. There are wonderful academics in this room. I salute you and I thank you for your commitment to the common good. There must be some good universities around the world, but if you see one, please help me because I want to talk about them. But this is what my journey of teaching at different universities, business schools, and department of economics in different continents of the world has led me to believe. If it is your belief as well, good. If it is not, I'd love to hear about your experience that is different to mine. So my first charge about this continuity of crisis is the failure of our education system. And this is what I said in that meeting. By and large, our education system has failed us all, with hugely tragic consequences. When education is designed, controlled, and implemented by narcissistic political and business leaders who have become prisoners of a reckless ideology called neoliberalism, drunk on market values and market forces, all morally and spiritually objectionable and intellectually bankrupt, when education is not for the pursuit of wisdom, virtues, and beauty, when students are called customers and education becomes a commodity, when universities become service providers and centers of business, trading in commodities, buying them cheap and selling them to the highest bidders, when teaching is not a vocation, when learning is not a sacrament, when education is all about the rankings and targets, when it all becomes about running low-quality courses with no heart, spirit, and meaning, just to get more students to the university, taught by a stressed out, fatigued, and overworked and not valued faculty, when it is all about delivery at the lowest possible cost and exam results are hugely inflated to make the customers happy and not complaining, then we have opened the doors to the destruction of all that makes life good, beautiful, and worthwhile. And again, Brother David, you very eloquently talked about egoism, narcissistic values, and so on. I 100% support that. I did a research. What is these leaders, these guys who want to become Prime Minister of England? That guy who became President of America, this guy who Prime Minister of Italy, that one in Hungary, that one recently in India, that one in Brazil, that one in Philippines. There is not many of them. Again, there is the wisdom to learn from 1930s Europe. We are repeating the same mistakes. Now, then I said, in due course, the consumerist citizens, now fully materialistic and not able to find the happiness that was promised them via consumption and shopping, they become fearful, insecure, hopeless, helpless, frustrated, angry, and in despair. The popular culture, the social media, becomes a pithy substitute for real life. Virtual friends overtake the real friends and comradeship. Trivia and amusement supplant substance and meaning. The citizens become sinister and complacent, easy prey, prone to the acts of indifference, voting against their own self-interest, allowing caricatures to lead them, making decisions for them, deflecting their attention from a much-needed social critic. From questions of substance, questions like what it means to be a human. What is the purpose of this journey we call life? How can I lead a meaningful and worthwhile life? How much time have I got? I don't want to...
Quarter an hour, 15 minutes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. I ask, what is my vision for education? What do I mean by education? And what education should be? I made a critic of it, so I have got to prove to you, hopefully I know what I'm talking about, by providing you with alternative. Otherwise, the story is half told. Here, I am very lucky man. A few years ago, when I was at Pareto College, Jesuit College in Oxford, I met an Englishman, again, God bless his soul, Father Peter Millward, who was a Jesuit priest, and he went to Canada, to Japan in 1950s, I believe, and he was a professor of Shakespeare studies, English literature, and he went to Sophia University, the very well-known Jesuit university in Tokyo, and he became director of the Renaissance Institute, etc., etc. I have written a book when I was at Pareto College, being influenced by Catholic social teachings, on the role of religion and economics, with a special emphasis on Catholic social teachings, which I found it really relevant and beautiful document. Anyway, I wrote a book about it, and Father Millward had heard about it, and he invited me to Japan to give lectures on that, and then also another university, another professor became very interested, and they translated the book into Japanese, which was a very great honor for me. Now, what am I saying this? I hadn't heard anything about Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism. It is believed that he was the founder of Taoism. I didn't know about anything about Zen studies and so on, and I still don't know much. What I know is just what I have read and tried to understand from the teaching of this great teacher, Lao Tzu. And then, when I was in Sophia University with the Jesuits and so on, one of them read this quote, this passage from Lao Tzu. And I said, wow, another beautiful discovery. I have discovered what the vision that I want to have should be. And this is what Lao Tzu says about teaching, and I love it. He says, some say that my teaching is nonsense. Just like now, many people when I go lecture, before I open my mouth and so on, they say, oh my God, he's going to talk a lot of nonsense. Tell us how to make money and all the rest of it. Why are you talking about love and humanity and so on? So some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty but impractical. But to those who have looked inside themselves, as Brother Davies was telling us, look at inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. And to those who put it into practice, this loftiness has roots that go deep. I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures, your greatest gifts. Simple in actions and in thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies. You accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself. You reconcile all beings in the world. So what I want to teach is compassionate economics, meaningfulness economics. If you come to my lectures and I'm talking about business of making money, which is important, money has got to be made. Without it, it's a different story. So I will tell you to make money, but I will also tell you why, how, and when you made it, what you should do with it. Because if I am only coming to you to inspire you to make money without telling you why, how, and what to do with it, you might as well go and get a drug pusher to come to tell you how to make money. It's very easy. They are pushing the drugs, heroins, cocaine, cracks, and all the rest of it, destroying lives and families and communities, and in the process, they are making billions of dollars. It's very easy to make money. It's also very easy to make the money to buy lottery tickets. If you're lucky, or from what I have heard, what happens to most of them, if you're unlucky and you win big, what has got to do with your effort? What has got to do with you? So when you come to my classes, and by the way, I have put all this on my website. There's a website since I retired. I wanted to do something meaningful. So there is this website called gcgi.info. It is on the notes about me in the book. Please visit that. It's a beautiful place to go because there is lots of beautiful things from very beautiful people around the world. It's not all mine. As I said, I'm only a messenger. I have learned so much things from all these lovely, beautiful, inspirational, aspirational people, and it's all there. So, a few years ago, I said, what can I do to engage with the young people? Although I'm not formally teaching anymore at the university, but I go around the world and I teach. And I put my promise to my students, my oath of ethics of teaching economics and business to you, my students. It's all there. Some of them, if I can share it with you, now I just read it to you very briefly, so it gives you a gist and a taste there, so hopefully you go and visit it and read it more. When I tell you to create wealth, I will also ask you why, how, and for what reason wealth should be made. I will ask you to reflect upon the true meaning of wealth, that perhaps the greatest wealth is not stored in things, but in relationships and community, happiness, contentment, and well-being. When I tell you about scarcity and competition, I will also tell you about abundance and cooperation. When I tell you about free trade, I also say about fair trade, and so on. Some of that I had mentioned to you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, it has been a greatest honor for me to stand in front of you, the people most of you know far better than I do. You have given me the permission to come here. You have given me the permission to share my thoughts with you. For that, I am most grateful, especially the people who have achieved so much more than I can even imagine in the world of education. Most of us going through life, young and old, black and white, man and woman, we always sometimes get ridiculed when we speak something that is not fashionable. We always try, there are people out there who try to hurt us, to belittle our views, because we don't represent their interest. I want to finish my talk by reading you a beautiful poem from Hafiz, the Persian sage of love, the man who is recognized as an authority of sharing beautiful wisdom with his readers. This poem is called Don't Despair, Walk On. It's a story of all of us who are taking action in the interest of the common good, especially when those actions are not fashionable. We must remain positive. We must remain hopeful. That is the only way we can change the world, through our positivity and hopefulness. Hafiz, he tells us, don't despair, walk on. Joseph to his father in Canaan shall return. Don't despair, walk on. And Jacob's heart will brighten with flowers. Don't despair, walk on. Aching hearts heal in time. Vanished hopes reappear. The desperate mind will be pacified. Don't despair, walk on. As the spring of life grows the newly green meadow, roses will crown the sweet nightingale's song. Don't despair, walk on. If the world does not turn to your whims these few days, cosmic cycles are preparing to change. Don't despair, walk on. If desperation whispers you will never know God, it's the talk of hidden games. Don't despair, walk on. O heart, when the vast flood slashes life to its roots, Captain Noah waits to steer you ashore. Don't despair, walk on. If you trek as a pilgrim through sands to Kaaba, with thorns lodged deep in your soul, shouting why, don't despair, walk on. Though oases hide dangers and your destinies far, there is no pathway that goes on forever. Don't despair, walk on. My trials and enemies face me on their own, but mystery always backs me up. Don't despair, walk on. Hafiz, weakened by poverty, alone in the dark, this night is your pathway into the light. Don't despair, walk on. Friends, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for allowing to share my thoughts with you. We must not despair. We must walk on. This beautiful week, this beautiful TODI week is an example of that. We must remain hopeful. We must remain steadfast. We must remain resilient. We must walk together in hope. I love you and I thank you.